there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this Ascension update with me. I hope this is not going to be too long because I have lots to report on today. It was a long night for me. I thought I was going to go to bed, and then yet there was so much spirit intervention coming through, and I just started to write it. I really am busy at this time with my new webpage. There's a lot of things still to do and create, but I really wanted to get this out until it's still fresh in me before I really forget anything, and of course that is why I made writings about it as well. So the main theme right now, of course, is moving on to this new galactic cycle still. But what's really taking place is, like I said, with each new movement, there's a culmination of something happening. But in this video segments, I want to just cover the main thing that came up during this phase, what we're maybe experiencing. Just go with the flow of what your inner guidance tells you, because this is where you are in your path. You know, ascension happens in waves, and yet it's not a mental experience, it's an intimate experience on a feeling level. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and start because there's a lot of things to talk about. The first thing is, last night I went online on Facebook, which I really don't usually do, as in write, going through what other people write, because I'm just so busy always creating something of my own, what spirit guides me. But I was seeing many testimonials and expressions and stories shared of many people talking about how hard it is for them at this time, how they're suffering, or they're seeing things as failure, or they're not really culminating in their plans of what they thought it's going to happen, or they have this feeling of disappointment. So it's almost like, when I was reading that, there was almost like a feeling of, when there's a cross-country marathon and there's like this final breakthrough energy, those final energy bursts that you need so you can get yourself to the finish line. And of course you had a long run, sorry, you had a long race, and you experience so much, and a lot of times it feels like giving up. And that is why probably a lot of you are receiving encouragement messages at this time for maybe things you really wanted to bring forth and create. But the main learning lesson that we're all kind of integrating at this time is trusting life. Forgetting about the aspect, not forgetting, but really coming into peace with the aspect of us that doesn't see every aspect of creation is perfect as it is. We're based on, when we're based on goals, when we're focused on goals and we feel we're worthless because we didn't yet accomplish that final end result, that final culmination, or a relationship didn't work out, or things went a little differently, kind of like you say, I want it this way, and then Spirit said, no, we want you to go this way. It's almost like living that faith into divine will and surrendering. It's not really surrendering divine will, but merging the divine will of all beauty and life and creation with our own divine will. So I saw that a lot of people are experiencing difficulty, and they're talking about the energy of suffering. Remember, once more, I shared about this before, suffering is not really a feeling. When you're working with your internal feeling and you're integrating your higher dimensional senses and replacing these lower emotions, it's like they're dissolving because their frequency is upgrading. Remember that certain things are not feelings. So suffering is not really a feeling. When you really go deep into the root of the word suffering, it doesn't have any feeling. Suffering is only the perception of something that you're resisting. So you feel, oh, I have suffering because it's not working out, I'm not flowing. Or something's just not really in alignment. So that's what you're experiencing, but it's not a feeling like anger, disappointment, discouragement, frustration, things like that. It's, being uplifted. These are real feelings that you can work with when you're working on your inner blossoming. But when you say I'm suffering, it's like a repetitious cycle that keeps on playing, because you say I'm suffering. And for all of you others who are out there who are suffering, it's just really, really it's just a story, it's not the truth. I also sometimes see people say, oh please, give me healing, offer me healing, can everybody offer me healing? You just have to go to one of the basic social networks and you will see people are there crying out for healing, or for themselves, for their pets, for their children, and they're saying that things are urgent, and it's still a lack of awareness that we still haven't learned the perfection of our life. So when you say, I want it this way, I want to heal, I wanted this, I wanted this, you hold a certain vision of what is healed for you, of, this control we want to have a control of other people's souls. People say, I've lost or I know people that lost so many people at the same time around them, as in souls leaving them, departing for the next adventure. And we're so holding on to that, and we're still in that controlling mode. Is suffering only comes from this. We haven't learned a true law of knowing that each soul has the freedom to choose whatever it's choosing, even if it's suffering, which means resistance. Because when we get to the core of our mastery, we will realize that we're powerless, not in the sense that we don't have power, as in self-power and self-control, which is the only control there is. There is no other sense of control. It's an illusion. And before we really get into this state, we will have this false sense of control. And we want things to be perfect. There are a lot of people are too perfectionist. So something doesn't work out the way they hope. They're still driving mode. And I see people want to make their new decisions already in that chaos energy when something, is still in the mix. And they're already looking for the next adventure without even taking a pause and asking themselves, but what do I feel? But what is my heart telling me through this experience? So before integrating the lessons, the learning cycle of the experience, they already want to go into the new. So this is constant resistance. We're escaping the basic messages. And that's the only reason of suffering that ever is. It's not because somebody is more blessed than somebody else. It's an illusion. It's we're in the ignorant self that really just tries to escape life instead of co-creating with life. That's why some people are experiencing such beauty now and some people are still experiencing suffering. It's because there's a difference in their perspective and in their integration of the self. So at this point, I want to talk about the waves of ascension again. So I'm going to be reading from here. So those who are experiencing these feelings, particularly if they're very intense, those souls might belong to the second wave of ascension. So as the first wave of ascension now is really coming into their presence as an embodiment, not just awareness of it, but true embodiment, they're feeling different, they're feeling bliss. They might still have getting used to the new. They still might have to do something on that level so that they really get accustomed to that. Yet life is abundance. It is beautiful. It's amazing. Wow, how can it be? So maybe they're still pulled to do some things in the old way, but basically their template does embody that. But the second wave, maybe they still have some patterns that they're dealing with. That's why they're still experiencing this loss and grief and suffering. It feels like their life is falling apart, and yet it's not. Pieces of the puzzles are scattering so that you can create a new picture, the one that you will create by your own image and likeness of your own source self. How many of you maybe had your lives told how you are supposed to live your life, what you're supposed to be good at? Sometimes I ask people, what do you desire? And they start, when I have sessions with them, they start to reference the things. They say, well, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. It's not what you desire. You're just starting to reference the things you think you're good at. We're all good in so many things, but that doesn't mean this is our main desire in the now moment. Sorry, I'm really passionate about this when I talk about it, because it's so simple and true. And the mind gives no reasoning. It's just that mere existence of that. So again, when I talk about waves, so this second wave, they have chosen to go this in a very rapid timeline. That is why things they feel they're falling apart very rapidly. So the second wave of ascension that's coming after the first wave, they have these rapid shifts. That's what they say, wow, I feel like on every level I've failed, or there are changes. It's too much. I can't take it. It's because you've asked to progress. Your soul is doing the progression towards ascension, and physically it comes this way, so you can build your life in the new. Yes, from scratch. This doesn't mean that what you've had worked on until this point, that it's meaningless, it's worthless, you failed, you're a failure. No way. It's just all these things served you, but it's time to deaccumulate all of this. I know that's not a word, but I'm saying it anyway, because it's just what comes through. And then trust that you will take something from every little experience you had, but you're going to create a new picture. So the second wave of ascension, they have chosen to go through these rapid shifts. They're going to be occurring until 2017 and 2018. So there's almost like approximately 2-year cycle that's going to be very intense. This year, in March, especially towards the end of March, when the eclipse season begins, there's a new cycle. There's a new cosmic cycle coming, and that first wave of ascension will almost be like liftoff. I didn't lift off as in go somewhere else. I landed here, but yet I feel my full divinity is living in this body now. And this is what's called this first wave of ascension. And the second wave is going to experience this quickening during these 2 years or 3, because we had those first 3 years in 2012. So now until 2018 approximately, let's say like that, was going to be again another rapid acceleration for the second wave. But the third acceleration that's going to happen for a more general populace that's also going to choose that, but in a more slower way, It's going to be occurring from, let's say, 2022, that some people state as an important date. It's not really a date, it's almost like a cycle, but moving into 2030. So it's almost like, you know, when you integrate something new and you have cycles and it shifts up very fast, it stabilizes a bit and then, you know, so it's like a fast quickening, a bit of stabilization, then it descends again. So this second wave will be catching this immense rapid frequency, but they're going to have very amazing potentials to, in a very short time frame, dissolve a lot of that which is not of their true self and really move into that new. So if you're feeling that things are like that for you, maybe go within your soul and ask yourself, is it possible that it's because of this? Or, you know, any way that you're guided. So they have their wave power. They have their wave already through that self-empowerment. They have their wave paved through the first wave. So the first wave already paved the way, and the second wave is just entering. And those who don't feel anything at all are experiencing superficial material spirituality, which is not even spirituality, you know. It's all based on just doing work with material, you know. It's like a shallow version of what you think is spiritual. And, you know, I'm doing some crystal healings here and I think it's spiritual, or doing this and that, but it hasn't really come from your essence. It's just a superficial layer that's not really that core self I am embodiment. So this, again, these people might not feel anything, and a lot of times they might say, oh, nothing's changing for me, I'm perfect, I'm good, and it's all still on the surface. But for them, when it's time, life will shake them as well. So if you're one of the people that's being shaken up, and some people are not, don't think of that as bad, because you're being shaken for a reason, because you're ready. And because somebody's not, it doesn't mean they're more blessed. Wait a few years, let things crystallize, and you will see. There's no comparison between our journeys. But please know that what you're choosing is because you're choosing it. It's not a fated event. So it means you're ready, and you're not going to experience spirituality here on a very shallow level. You're going to move into the depth of your soul. You're going to activate your highest potential. So these that are not experiencing are probably not even yet in those waves. So the next wave will take longer. Let's say 2015 to 2017 and 18 is the very biggest potential. It's going to be rapid acceleration. The most rapid shift probably we've ever experienced. It's going to you know, like I said, stabilize a bit, and then it's gonna be a bit decreased. Not decreased, but it's gonna be more like solid. So, and that wave is leading us to the true soul joy and bliss. So approximately 7 years of this acceleration, but first 2 and 3 will be highest potential. Yeah, it's gonna be of course, this year, you know, the year of the horse, everybody said was very fast moving, and the year of the goat now is going to be more slow moving, and yet the slowness doesn't mean there's going to be less creativity, but we're going to experience the energy in a different way. And maybe on this note, it's time to go a few leaves back and to tell you about the basic energy laws. For example, the energy dynamics, how it works. When we're in a slow-moving energy, there's not much action happening, and we're living mostly in the past. We have this retrograding feeling. When we're in fast, hyper-moving energy, there's lots of action, creativity, bursting with life. We're living mostly in the future, so that's why a lot of people who are pioneers, they don't always belong to this time frame. Their beliefs and ideals are sometimes too much for this world to cope with, and they feel I'm too fast, and they feel like they don't belong, and yet they do, because they're planting seeds. You know, in this earth, you probably realized or noticed yourself that a lot of times when we're when certain spiritual teachings or anything that was new comes out is already post-mortem. So when the being, you know, already dies, one of such examples is Osho. I didn't even know that the person is dead because I didn't know, you know, and I said, wow, everybody's following so much this being, and most of the fame took place post-mortem. It's because maybe some people bring these ideals that people are not yet ready to accept on that level. It's too much for them, it's too fast, it's not yet when they're filtering. So that's probably one of the reasons. And then there's a third wave. It's like steady centered energy. This is the master energy, the middle way. So this is living centered in the now. When things, you can feel them fast and slow at the same time. You know, this is that mastering energy when you always exist within all. So it's like within a sphere of consciousness. So spirit and form here merge and become one. There is great balance and harmony, and this is how we attain spiritual mastery. Okay, so this is one thing, but again, let's go back to the experiencing of this intensity. Within these 2 years, there's going to be so much quickening that those souls who have paved the way and did the preparation in the first wave, they've already accepted and established this true self dynamics within them. So those who are following, don't be afraid to reach out. You know, there's people now who can help you, who are here on this planet that are here to help you. They were masters in training, you're also a master in training. But you know, it's not meaning that you're giving your power away when you ask for help, when you ask for guidance. It doesn't mean you're giving it away. You're only giving it away when you think somebody else is going to do the work for you. So you're just reaching out, you know, brothers and sisters. We're in a universal brotherhood consciousness. It's not like a game or a race, yeah? So when we do it through love, we know this. So don't be afraid to reach out, and I don't mean just me, you know, it's like everybody has something that you'll be guided to in that moment. If that's me, that's great. If that's somebody else, that's also perfect. Just, you know, trust your heart where it guides you. Okay, the second part is the new cosmic cycle and the end of March, this theme. So with the equinox and eclipse season, the last grand cardinal square is going to take place. Of course, the planets, Pluto, Uranus are still going to dance, but this is going to be the the most intense activation. Now, that's where probably a lot of beings now who are going through these intense feeling like, oh, it's almost like the last finish line step. This is why it feels that way. So these new beginnings of greater proportions will follow after that because of this shedding of the old. And either we will feel it big time or little or not at all. And again, it really corresponds to the level of your awareness. Awareness tells you things. It tells you the nature of your reality. It's not governed by the outside sources. People can tell you prophecies. If you're not feeling it, it's meaningless for you. So it's not a thinking process what you're experiencing. It's because our mind is not our awareness. It's a richness of the experience. It's a feeling. It activates through our soul and its awareness, through spirit, communion, and experience. So really depends with our personal attunement. So the next important thing here is align with that. So because of this great seeding of this new, travel is going to take place, meaning that certain souls will be guided to be at certain specific locations. And what I received guidance is that many will be guided. Maybe, you know, if that's you, again, listen to your heart, not what I'm saying. If you're going to be guided to a special sacred space, remember, sacred space is where you are. You are your greatest sacredness. But what I mean when I say this is spaces that always, even in ethereal realms, what are ethereal retreats, for example, realms, are spaces who are interdimensionally linked with that physical place. So they kind of like cross over, and yet it's in a different vibration, so different dimensional experience. And if you're going to be guided to one of those places, and it's almost like it's going to be where you want to set the attunement for the next years ahead, especially if you're in the first wave and you have this grand cycle of new beginnings, you know, and you know that it's related also with the specific essence, and not just the next 7 years, but beyond as well. And if you're going to be guided, listen to your heart, that there's going to be things occurring on that level. Spirit showed me yesterday. So what you're tuning to is the essence. It's not, I'm going to the place so I can get downloads or I can get, you know, something outside of me. It's the essence that awakens within you. And for example, it means that still, even though it's an essence, it's yet also a physical receiving as well. So I also got guidance on UK, and then I had this thought, wait a minute, it's amazing, because Glastonbury, especially in certain aspects, are related to the magician energy. And you know, Merlin was in UK, and this time was very much the time of magic. Magic was persecuted at that time, but at the same time, magic was coexisting with such intensity and yet with such persecution. So after that persecution, a lot of that magic went to sleep, and now these abilities are again awakening, going from doormat to being really integrated. So wherever you're guided to go, follow that feeling. So the energy at that space, maybe, yeah. For example, the UK and that part is the alchemy energy, and this is the year of the magician, of the alchemist, which really corresponds. So the energy is strong there. For example, Merlin the wizard, our magical abilities are reawakening at this time, and Merlin represents that. It's the magician within all of us. Merlin is not a person, not just an archetype. It's a real living thing that is awakening within us. So, for example, if you really wanted to be at a certain place, but it wasn't yet timing for you to be there, and you're feeling the calling, and yet you feel, why wasn't I there? but I feel still called to it. Maybe the timing wasn't it right, because your energy, your magic needs to awaken to a specific level. It's almost like, you know, the key, the gateway and the key, they need to lock in at a very specific time and space. So it needs to be a direct correspondence. It's where the magic really takes place. So it's all about perfect timing and location. And maybe we've been there before, there's souls who've been there before, and they're ready now to activate this part. And that's why maybe before you were guided to go somewhere, but you didn't yet feel either powerful enough to go, or something you felt maybe resources were lacking. Now they're all of a sudden they're there. It's because it's time. So when the soul is ready, it will happen and it will be provided. Listen to that calling. It is to set our new life in motion. We were already called there before, so now it might get stronger. We will know when it's time. Especially pay attention to the end of March and what you're guided to do or be aware at that time. And again, like I said, our gifts and magical abilities are doing this step by step. They're not awakening right all of a sudden. They're doing that in a beautiful integration process, because our bodies need to accept it, you know, not thinking that we're crazy or, you know, not knowing what to do with it. And I've shared about this before. It's, you know, with great power, with great harnessing of that power comes great responsibility. There's a lot of souls who not merely they've done certain acts of, you know, abusing power, but maybe they've even witnessed it and still they closed off this magical essence that is just living life for us, that flows through us. And now again, it's time to awaken that sleeping dragon. So as you know, that time of Britain when Merlin was there was also known for dragons. Dragons lived amongst people. There were many legends about this, and they were meant to serve humanity until again there was abuse of power. So time is different now. You're wiser, you know, you're witnessing yourself. You're looking at your own choices, so choose wisely. Okay, what else? Yeah, before these abilities were put to sleep almost, but we did that. Nobody did it for us. You know, everything that happens, it's not something externally that somebody is our master and we are like a puppet, you know, they're a puppeteer. It's, we've made that choice. We've signed a deal. And now it's really that we're ready for that full activation to take place. So, it needs to be right and in alignment, and if it's not, maybe some people, they could feel scared, you know. And I want to give you one example here. The masters of former ages and their stories, because I was reading from a tiny booklet of Saint Germain, and it was shared how in each lifetime he was already setting in motion preparations for its next lifetime. So it's when we are in this knowing, we know that in each lifetime we've set a stone, we've set a pillar, and especially those who have many incarnations here on this planet, and they were always meant to be of service, and maybe at that time they weren't aware of it, that everything is leading to a very specific culminating point, which is ascension. Everything you did for your personal ascension, to return to your own God-realized self. Not to God somewhere outside of you, but your own God-realized presence. So when you look at these stories, it's very obvious there. So the incarnations they had and how in each lifetime they set the stage for the next few years and lives ahead. You know, how, for example, Saint Germain carried the flame of freedom from this area and then to another area, and then, you know, how everything interconnected. And in each lifetime had a sense, had a meaning. So it's not just about lifetimes, even in our personal journey. Sometimes things feel meaningless, and yet, because we don't see the whole picture yet. When we fully live our divinity means we trust it, period. No doubts, period. No doubts, not even a single one. When there's still doubts, I'm still not in my full divinity. You know, I am divine, but I'm not full in living of it. So we're doing the same. We're beginning to embrace the path of self-mastery, and we're setting these conditions. We're setting the stage, and it means that Source Self shows you. It's your own prophecy. It's not the prophecy about this planet, what's going to take place. It's the prophecies we write. Wow, there's a beautiful light in the sky just now. Okay, woo, creepy, but good, in a good way. So these prophecies we write to ourselves, yeah? And it was a hello from heaven right now. One really important thing, again, another topic is greater non-resonance and veils lifting and shifting and confusion. I'll explain more about this as I go in the topic. So many are now still in the confusion state. You can read if you're online, and if you're one of those who really likes to browse for information, naughty you, information's not all there is. Information's not wisdom, but I want to say that when you come into the World Wide Web, there's all sorts of energies, writings, people's perspectives, all of that. Personally, I sometimes view these things to see where the mass consciousness is at and to give me a reference to have these topics. But I really advise you to first and foremost focus on the I Am teachings, mastery teachings, self-mastery, self-focus, stories, reading stories of great ancients, of saints. All this is a real inspiration for us, while different explanations for people who maybe have certain information but they don't yet have the understanding of it and they present it as the truth. It can be, when you're not in full discernment, it can sometimes be even destructive to yourself, because you're just putting the extra energy of fear and mind entanglement that really doesn't serve you. So you're creating extra excess energy to then dissolve from your field. You know what I mean? So with this confusion, there's an example of this article that I've saw this weekend. It's about the new earth and fifth dimension being a lie and an illusion to get us distracted. And, you know, there's this whole perspective of archons and these beings who hold us in these astral levels and all of that stuff. And, you know, how we're entrapped. And almost like it feels when you read things like that, you have no will. You're this poor little human trapped in these lifetimes and incarnations. And basically the whole of creation has no sense because everything is just so dramatic and traumatic. And what was shared there also is... and we really need to keep staying alive, because Earth is organic. It offers us organic ascension. Without it, we cannot even ascend. And it makes no sense, because what is ascension? It's an inner thing. It's an inner journey. It's an inner alchemy. It's when you're ready to become your God source realized self, the I am. And when you're ready to move to those levels, to really become immortal. So it's not like somebody holds the key for you and they're the ones governing you, unless you give them that power and choice. So there's a lot of individuals who in former realities, they've made that choice. So these are the individuals probably now who are experiencing those things. They don't yet have proper awareness because they're still playing the victim-perpetrator mode in game. And it's still very dualistic. So what they do is, without having any greater awareness and wisdom, they just make conclusions and assumptions that are really giving their power away. And they think they finally got it, you know, until the level when they maybe again see, maybe they still haven't finally got it. And yet there is no final getting it until you are one with your source. And of course there was some writing about that in the general writing, but a lot of the things, they excluded themselves. So, you know, one thing, but then the other thing, it's almost like they were exclusive and they didn't kind of add up together. So when you're in your divine logic, you know that when you read something like that, it doesn't make you feel pleasant. It feels sticky. There's, you know, it's almost like setting mind traps. And a lot of people who might be reading that, that get extra sense of fear because they're not in that integrated discernment enough. So again, really watch out for what you're receiving from the outside. Ascension is your internal wisdom system. If there's something like that on the outside, see how the energy when you read it feels. See the conclusion. See if there's anything that, is it really unifying, or is there different aspects that are just excluding themselves? That's your basic first shower. It's our ultimate revealer of truth. So there was also, you know, this talking about this being a trap for our minds because we wish to go somewhere else, and this is shown to us in these astral levels, like the new earth, and then the souls want to leave instead of being here really on the planet, because this is your ticket to ascension, to stay in the body. What about masters who made their ascension while they were in spirit? You know, not everybody made physical ascension. Some do it post-mortem. It means that they do it, it's a physical ascension, there's a spiritual ascension. And these two are just different choices. But it's like telling you that Earth is the only way that you can ascend, because Earth is a galactic ship. In a way it is, but it's not your source. Nothing else is your source. When you think that way, you give power away to anything, instead of realizing that creation is you. You are creation. So all the power of all the universes is within you. You are the only one who makes the choice to ascend, to move your consciousness, to flow as one with life, or either to resist it. There's no archons or other beings that are governing you unless you create that, and you will play the reality. And, you know, these things exist for a reason. You know, these are not astral lives. You know, people say all these past lives are astral lives. They're just lives that souls said, okay, I'm going to play this. And even when we see it as an entrapment, still, they made the choice. That's a free will. That's a free will universe here. And when we think in those terms, we actually give all of our power, and every sense that divinity has a sense, we throw away. And we become really mentally engaged in ascension, and we think in ascension as a need. I need to ascend, otherwise these beings will manipulate me, you know, in all the lives and all the realities, and I need to finish that finally for once and for all. Yes, to be a sovereign, but not that way, not through fear or escaping imprisonment, or, you know, it's about embracing. You know the story about Saint Germain that he was sharing? He was being trapped in a crystal, his consciousness. He was fighting and resisting it and everything until he realized he just surrendered. And that was the gateway, that was the key. Realizing your oneness with all of creation. And when you don't, you will see yourself as separate from it, and you will create these stories that you will feed through your perception, so then you will live out your perspectives. That's how simple it is. And so these people, they're actually, when they're saying these things, they're playing these old scenarios over and over again. And they're still not willing to unify and break through, because nobody can govern you when you come from your inner source. You are then the most powerful creation being ever, because you've returned to your true home, to your signature of your I amness. So they're applying no wisdom, only interpretation through what they perceive as right, and it's just maybe their scenario. It's maybe their perspective, but doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth. So don't let something like that influence what you perceive. Create your own truth. It begins within. Nobody will give you the ultimate answer. You know, in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they were searching throughout the entire book and all the journeys, the ultimate answer to life's question. You know, what's the meaning of life? And there was just this random number 42, which, you know, maybe it's not random at all, maybe it's totally divine, maybe it has a meaning on one level, but it was this beautiful representation that don't do it. Just don't seek the meaning of every single thing, single detail. Live the meaning, become the meaning. Don't see everything as opposing you, as governing you, as manipulating you, controlling you. Stop controlling yourself, and the world will stop resisting you as well. And so what we read here is, when we read something like that, it's not enough, you know, and we're not guided. We're guided by many different perspectives, illusions even, and falsehoods, but we're not guided by our own God spark that knows, the inner knowingness, yeah? And it's not the I am, but rather very small, fragmented parts of the mind. And, you know, if you believe in this fragmentation, then you're also creating a fragmentation within yourself, so you're thinking as a fragmented being instead of a unified being. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So making a lot of assumptions of these old ways that no longer applies, almost like pretending you're living in a world that's not even existing anymore. Earth is already in this new cycle. It's not what we think it is in these terms, yeah? So we need to return to the unity without judgment, and thinking that we are either victims or trapped, or that we are anything like martyrs, and, you know, dragging these old scenarios over and over again, and saying, wow, this happened in Atlantis, I still have those visions, oh my gosh, it's still this bad, it's still like that. Well, who's creating it? Who's choosing it? Okay, so we are masters, yeah? And I really rather encourage you to read self-mastery teachings, study self-mastery, read the stories that inspire, that show you how great beings that really were of illumination, that we also are when we become that ourselves, and integrating it. And these show us the way through their own examples and teachings. Also, you know, there's a very simple scale that Spirit showed me, is here's the middle path, yeah, in the middle. As that awareness spot, is the 0 point, as the neutrality of divine love, the ultimate answer to all life in creation. Then you go too much to the one side, and you come to one extreme. We have extreme dogmatic beliefs, and dogma is the darkness, the ignorance, the suppression, you know. And let somebody else tell you things, yeah? You don't decide, you don't have any will at all. And then you swing too much to the other side, and what you get is fanatic. You get fanatic movements, which is again that false light, the you know, woo, you get almost like too much in the cause, you know, you fight for things, you're gonna become the warrior of light, and in case that's too fanatical, you're just creating so much resistance, and, you know, this belief in hell actually creates a living hell within you. There is no hell as a place, unless what you create. So also something that Spirit guided me to share, because in that article there was this saying, you know, we're only creating on these astral levels, we're not moving into our God spark. It's important to know how do we create, and I've shared this before in my dream video when we access the astral realms, that they're actually training grounds. So although some things we perceive as negative, when we say there's also negative beings there, this is how many different souls learn. They learn how to create through love, and once you do, you can move on to the next step. So the astral is almost like a school. It's the teaching ground. Let's say that's why people said Earth is like a quarantine. It means that certain beings could only access these astral levels because there was this web of this manipulation put around Earth's grid. It's because this was a decision. This was the collective decision. There was no outside masters unless there was also those submissive who said, okay, we will participate in this. So it's a dual game. There is no game because, you know, you only play a game when there's usually players. So players were all co-creating this. And when you have the higher perspective of this, you really live a life of spirit. We have a deeper wisdom here. This is what I'm talking about. So these astral grounds, they're training grounds, and they're almost like I said, the quarantine. It's when you're still not at the level of the universal law of one, and you can create anything in the astral. That's what you do it in the dream time as well. It's not just the bad ones, those who are doing, you know, the naughty stuff. Everybody does, but it's only allowed here. So up until the point when you unify, you can't move on these higher realms and become immortal, illuminated being of light that you are already. But you're still playing on these other aspects of densities, and you're not yet willing or ready to embrace your given God nature, your God-given nature. And so in the higher realms, we really can only come there and create when we know and to create within the universal law of oneness. So the light of the higher realms, it's something different. It's not the same as the astral teaching ground. And we can create or recreate anything in the astral, but only enter back and create on higher planes when within the law of universal brotherhood. So these beings who really come with the unity, they're from the universal brotherhood. And okay, that's it for this level. And the last note, finally, because this is getting very long, right? I know I'm so hyper these days. Wow, my body can barely handle it. So this is the last symptom. The last symptom. The last, what is it? The last chapter. Okay, last chapter of the book of the Ascension Update. We're moving into greater divine creativity. Okay, and this keeps our life force in motion. So although we're experiencing still some body symptoms, and Spirit showed me that some of them might intensify because it's the last culmination. So right before you hit the goal, when you're a marathon runner, you're like, oh, you feel so tired, and you've already had that long journey. You feel, oh, I'm gonna quit right before this ends. And the symptoms feel the heaviest, things are feeling most intense. It's because you're that last quarter. And it's not a punishment, it's just everything that's been building up. You're reaching that core level. So let's say you've been working on your self-healing, your self-wholeness, and you thought you had it all done already, and then something comes out and it's really intense this time. And you say, how the heck? Because I already did so much work. It's because now the core is coming out, and you might see, because you did so much of the light came through, that it revealed everything that it was not. And that's why now your body's showing you. Every time you've ignored it, every time you didn't rest, every time you put it to sleep, every time you put pills in your body instead of listening to your body and what it's saying, every time you put alcohol, every time you ate dense food that's not in compassionate feeding, your bodies are now showing us. Every time you said no to the body when you should said yes. So these heavy body symptoms are more, it's not just releasing, it's, you know, like you said, there's the darkest before the dawn. So this prime core level is being revealed, and maybe something like the weight we've been carrying, or the burdens we've had, sometimes even unknowingly, and yet that we're there feeling like we need to get it all together, have it always all together, because we're here, and nobody around us feels like we are, because we're placed in these different positions on the planet, and not everybody around us mirrors our consciousness. That's why. And it doesn't mean because you're this, you know, embodiment of this higher frequency that you have to have it always all together. So this is now being released, and we're getting that build up. So these deepest layers are, you know, meaning the most what it's really giving us the meaning, what is really there at the core. And that is why now I'm talking about this divine creativity, because this is moving the energy, the life force through our body. So instead of that stagnation, the energy, when you're divinely creative, when you're inspired by spirit and you're bringing something to the place here and now that was never here before, you're saying yes to life. You're saying, I have a purpose, so therefore, I'm here. I'm here because I have a purpose. You're not in stagnation mode, and you're really propelled to be in that beautiful space that you're creating your own little piece of heaven on earth. And because of that, that keeps our life force in motion, and it always moves you ahead. That doesn't mean you don't have moments when you rest. It's just still every time it's inspired. Even rest is inspired, or nourishment. So our body needs to be in balance energetically and physically. Sometimes we only do energetic healing, forget the physical healing, touch, caressing, hugging, loving your body, treating it physically as well. Recently I saw an article about the techniques of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, I don't know how really to pronounce it. Jiu-jitsu. So it's about working with the pressure of touching. It was about fingers and what each one represents in the body. Having the time to talk to your body in that way, when you're making love to your own body and working with pressure, touch, healing, but also with the light at the same time. So when we don't just do energetic healing, this approach is first this creativity, and then really embodiment through that, through embracing your body as a sacred vehicle for ascension. So it's almost like through the feeling senses, through that physical built up, we're also doing the light built up, and they're meeting together as one, forming in spirit merge. Yes. So this is it. And the final question here, referring again to the topic before, is Earth really a portal and spaceship for ascension? Think about it, almost like that question, if the new Earth and fifth dimension are actually an illusion. Yes and no at the same time. Yes, for those who think that that's something you need to reach in a certain condition, certain level somewhere outside of you. And no to those who are bringing ascension in their bodies, who are becoming ascended, who are bringing these higher frequencies in their form and becoming the pillar of light, the heaven on earth. So this question, study it. It's like, is Earth really a portal? Do you ascend through Earth, or do you ascend with Earth? And is ascension conditioned when we really are in our I amness? Think about that. So as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. My notebook is all wet because it's raining, and it's all misty and foggy, and yet it's so beautiful and divine. So much sacredness to all of you. Love, wisdom, power, as always. Take care. Bye-bye.